What's going on, guys? I'm back with another one. And I just watched a movie called Ghostbusters Afterlife, starring Mckenna Grace, Finn Wolfhard, and Paul Rudd. First of all, I'm going to give you a history lesson, or my history, on the Ghostbusters franchise. Okay. First one came out in 1984. All right, this is part one. This was a fresh idea. No one had ever done this with ghosts, sci-fi and comedy all mixed together. We all loved it. We enjoyed it. We laughed. We enjoyed the four comedians. Let's say the two comedians and two actors. But they all made us laugh, nonetheless. All right. We have remembered the iconic characters. Slimer, the Marshmallow Man. All right. This had a great soundtrack with I Ain't Afraid of No Ghost. I'm sure it was not titled that, but that's what I remember it as. I Ain't Afraid of No Ghost. Okay? It was very enjoyable, fresh, and a new idea at the time. Remarkable. Then, 1989, a sequel comes along. Of course, there has to be a sequel. There has to be a sequel. Wasn't as great as the first one, but still a great movie to watch. Just an entertaining movie to watch. Okay, I still loved it. It also had a good soundtrack. It had Bobby Brown. All right, this time it's Bobby Brown. No judgment here. Some things hadn't happened yet. Okay. All right, so that was a good one too. And, over the years, there was the cartoons and toys and yada, 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 yada. All right. Then 2016 came along. And for some reason, they decided that a reboot would be best with an all-female cast now. All comedians who, remind you, are usually funny women. Anywhere else but this movie. Okay. The funniest character in the reboot was Chris Hemsworth. And he's not a comedian in no shape or form. So this was a huge failure, without saying. We tried to forget this. We did not want to remember this ever again. We swept it under the rug like we do a lot of other reboots and remakes and continuations. We thought it was done. Now it's 2021, and we have Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is a continuation of the original franchise. And I must ask the question, will this pay the rightful homage to the original franchise? Or was this a complete and total waste of time? And a head scratcher for even wanting to make this. We're about to find out. Let's go. Ghostbusters Afterlife. For those who don't know, for those who are not aware, this movie has been advertised for, I'd say, if not 2 years, at least 1 year over now. Okay? If you don't know about this, you are just like Dr. Bankman. You're stuck on a farm, an isolated farm somewhere, waiting for a ghost that might never come. Okay? Not to know about this. Don't play. Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's pretty much evolved around Dr. Bankman's daughter and her son, who are in financial troubles as of lately. And because of that, they have to run off to a isolated farm that used to be occupied by her father, Dr. Bankman, from the old Ghostbusters foursome. All right. He's now passed away, and this is the only thing that was left of him. And there are some creepy foresights and things that they really should have paid attention to while moving in that house. But anyways, they move into this house, and they start to find leftover items and objects and trinkets and whatever that the old Ghostbusters used to use. The traps and whatnot, and the proton guns and all this. And needless to say, the youngest of them, the kid, the daughter, she is just like Dr. Bankman. She is a female reincarnation of Dr. Bankman. So she picks up on this very well. She's incredibly intelligent, by the way. And she picks up on all this, and it just comes to her like second nature. And then they slowly find out that those ghosts are coming right back. All right, there's another ghostly onslaught about to take place, and that's the premise of the movie. Positives. The strongest thing that I can come off the back about this movie is the nostalgia, and I'm sure you all were expecting that. All right, the strongest thing would be nostalgia. The power of this movie to take you back to the original, to the 80s. All right, it had that feel so strong. It was so strong. The presence of the 90s and 80s was so strong in this movie. You can feel it. It almost looks like this movie was made years back, so long ago, but it wasn't. So whoever did the cinematography, kudos to them. Kudos to them, because it had the look. It had the look. And there are certain things within this movie that validate that. I cannot mention them because it would spoil a lot of things. But there's a lot of things in this movie that just back this up. That the nostalgia is a high presence within this film. I love that. Following the nostalgia, there is the sentimental value. There's some things in this, and there's a motivation from the daughter that is very sentimental. Something dear to her, okay, that she doesn't really even realize that she's trying to fight. The daughter herself, not the granddaughter, in this movie, that will come to a reveal of itself later on, much later on in the film. Okay, and I kind of, for all my Dragon Ball Z fans, I'm going to say this. When everything comes to a fold, there is a sort of a Dragon Ball Z moment. And when that moment happens, Dragon Ball Z fans will know what I'm talking about. They'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It felt just like that. It felt just like that. All right, that was kind of cool. I'm wondering how many people will catch on to that. We shall see. We shall see. But it just, that's the first thing I thought about when I saw that specific scene played out. I immediately thought about that, and I was like, wow, that now if they purposely did this, I mean, yeah, they were genius for that. That was pretty cool little throw on to the film. Okay. One more positive about this. It's about the actors involved in this movie. And the rest of them I will get to later, but for now, for the positives, the two actors that really put their all, or, what they could for this film, I'd say were Mckenna Grace and Paul Rudd. I say that because Paul Rudd, on his end, he brought most of the laughs in the comedy. The real, authentic laughs. Okay, not the forced. He brought the real laughs to this movie. And honestly, I've seen him do better. But looking at the competition he had as far as humor, he didn't have to try that hard. Okay, he didn't have to try that hard to be the funny guy in the movie. Not really. It was almost effortless to him. All right, I appreciate that from him. Now, on Mckenna Grace's side, for being the age that she was, the young actress that she is, she did a very good job. Knockout spectacular job at that role she played. Because she embodied the young, like I said, reincarnation of Dr. Bankman. She did a very good job at that. Every time I saw her, I thought Dr. Bankman. I said, this is definitely, she was more of Dr. Bankman's daughter than the actual daughter, her mother. She felt like she was more of that than, who was supposed to be. And it was just so dead on, with the awkwardness and, her inability to kind of connect with everybody else. She was on her own zone of the horrible jokes and whatnot. And she just, it was all that. So I give her kudos for her acting skills on this, being so young. And so now we get to those good old negatives. The first thing I gotta mention about this. Yes, those two characters, those two actors, they did their job that they were supposed to do. Everybody else in this cast they were so stale. They were so plain and boring, like robotic. And I'm not saying the acting was bad. The acting was actually decent, but it's the characters they were portraying had nothing behind them. There was nothing behind them. It was like you could take their faces off, like Westworld, and you'd see parts and bits and pieces inside there and motors running because there was no humanity within them. It was just so force-fed. And just there was no feeling behind their acting or their characters. Okay, it was so boring. And those two ones I just mentioned, they really saved the day on that, on any interest within the character at all. So that was pretty bad. Another negative, I have to say, the failed attempt on humor. All right, so many jokes that were dropped and thrown to the side because they couldn't get it right. All right, Paul Rudd did most of the joking and landed all his jokes, even though there was some of those jokes were given that were kind of like what, but he could do better. But he still landed them. He still landed those jokes with no problem. Everybody else. Even Phoebe, the little girl, I know her jokes were meant to be bad, but damn, man, what in the hell? That's all I was there with. What? Why so bad? What is the, and her character kept doing it. Like it was supposed to get cuter. There's probably only one joke that she landed that worked for her because of her awkward personality made that work. All right. But other than that, no, please stop. I beg for them to please stop trying so hard to be funny. It's so corny. It was so corny. Ah, man. Another thing about this, the lack of originality in this movie. Besides your heavy onslaught of nostalgia, everything else was just cookie cutter. It was just things we've seen already. Nothing about this movie is original on its own. It's not going to stand out on its own. It's just something they could have saved some money and just not even put this in theaters if you're going to do it like that. Okay? If you're going to do it in this way, where this movie just rides on nostalgia and that's it. You're bringing nothing else to this film besides the family, the grandkids. Ooh, the son wasn't even interesting. You could have made him a little more of the son who's not the smart one. If you get what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying there? If he's not the smart one, come on. Come on, you know what you got to do. All right. But with her, the daughter, that was the only thing in that family that stood out. It just, but originality wise, it gave me nothing. You use a lot of old school stuff and to bring us back into the rotation of things when it comes to Ghostbusters. That's all you could do. Last negative about this. This took so long to get remotely interesting. I was dozing off. The Sandman was coming. The Sandman had me in a headlock. It took so long. It took too long for that. That was a huge problem, and I hate when that happens. So, with that said, I've got to give this an yes and okay? It's getting an because the only reason it doesn't get a hell no, it's just simply the nostalgia. It's simply the nostalgia. That's it. That's it. If they did not feed the nostalgia monster like they did, this would be utter complete trash. Never try this again. Never try another Ghostbusters movie ever again. I beg of you. Press that like button, share. You better subscribe to this channel.